In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NBA games happening on January 25th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Sacramento Kings versus Detroit Pistons. The Sacramento Kings head to Little Caesars Arena on Sunday afternoon to take on the Detroit Pistons. Sacramento is coming off losses to the Raptors and Cavaliers, with the Knicks waiting next, and that slide has now stretched to 4 straight defeats. Detroit, on the other hand, beat the Pelicans, then stumbled against the Rockets, and still has a strong run going with 16 wins in its last 23 games. Keegan Murray remains out for the Kings, while the Pistons have Caris LeVert listed as doubtful for this one. What is a bit funny here is that, for a team on a 4-game losing streak, the Kings have not looked completely lost. They actually look decent at times. They are getting healthier with Sabonis back in the lineup, and they hung in there against a red-hot Cavaliers team in their last outing, which says something about their effort level. The Pistons come into this matchup as clear favorites at home, and before that flat performance against the Rockets, they were rolling and looking very confident. These teams last met on December 23rd, and the Pistons took that one by a 136-127 scoreline, which shows how quickly Detroit can put points on the board when it gets rolling. Honestly, the Pistons have the kind of firepower that can blow the doors off here, especially against a Kings team that has struggled and taken its lumps recently. Here is the thing, though. This is a hefty number to cover, and you have to wonder how eager Detroit will be to completely bury an opponent in an early Sunday afternoon start. It feels more like a handle your business, get the win, and get out type of spot than a statement game. On top of that, the Kings are 3-0 against the spread and 2-1 straight up over the last 2 weeks when catching double-digit points, which quietly shows they have been fighting as big underdogs. So while there is a clear gap between these two teams right now, this still looks like too many points to ignore, even if it feels a bit uncomfortable to trust Sacramento. As our first pick for this matchup, the Sacramento Kings to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Sacramento Kings are averaging 110.2 points on 46.3% shooting and giving up 120.7 points on 49.2% shooting. They are knocking down 34.9% of their threes and hitting 76.2% from the free throw line. The Kings are allowing 4.8% shooting from deep and pulling down 40.6 rebounds per game, which paints a picture of a defense that can leak but a team that at least competes on the glass. The Detroit Pistons are putting up 118.8 points per game on 48% shooting and allowing 112.7 points on 44.4% shooting. They are shooting 35.1% from beyond the arc and 75.3% from the line. The Pistons are allowing 35% from three-point range and grabbing 46.3 rebounds per contest, which hints at a strong presence on the boards and plenty of second-chance looks. When you put all of that together, you have one team that is giving up a lot of points and another that scores freely and controls the glass, and that combination usually leans toward a higher scoring game. The previous matchup getting into the 130s for Detroit and 120s for Sacramento also fits that theme, even if you do not expect a carbon copy of that box score. With both offenses capable of putting up stretches of quick scoring and both defenses showing cracks, this sets up as another game where points should flow more than they stall. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Denver Nuggets versus Memphis Grizzlies. The Denver Nuggets head into FedEx Forum on Sunday night to take on the Memphis Grizzlies. It is a matchup where recent form and injury news are pulling in different directions, which is why the number feels a bit strange at first glance. Denver comes in riding some real momentum, fresh off wins over the Wizards and the Bucks, with the Pistons waiting on the schedule next. They have taken 8 of their last 11 games, so even with all the chaos around their roster, they have been handling business more often than not. Memphis is on the other side of that spectrum right now. The Grizzlies have dropped games to the Hawks and Pelicans and have the Rockets coming up, and they have lost 8 of their last 12 overall, which tells you their form has been shaky for a while. The injury report is so crowded it almost reads like a scrimmage sheet. The Nuggets are still without Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon and Christian Braun, and Jonas Valanciunas and Jamal Murray are both listed as questionable, which leaves a lot of moving pieces for their rotation. On the Memphis side, Ty Jerome, Santi Aldama, Ja Morant, and Zach Edey have all been ruled out again, so they are not exactly working with a full-strength group either. Because of that, this is one of those games where people will be checking social media right up until tip-off, watching for any late update on who is actually suiting up. Even so, Denver has already shown they can compete and win in this short-handed state, especially when they lock in defensively like they did against the Bucks on Friday. If they bring that same focus at that end of the floor, their remaining talent and structure should be enough to keep them right in the thick of things against a Grizzlies team that has been searching for consistency. Oddsmakers clearly are not fully sure what to do with this number, and you can see why when more than half of each roster is hanging around on the injury report. The Nuggets situation at least has some potential upside, because a few of their guys are questionable rather than already ruled out, which leaves the door open for a late boost. The Grizzlies, meanwhile, have not really earned the right to be trusted as favorites with this current version of their team, especially given how their recent run has gone. Despite all the bodies missing for Denver, they keep finding ways to grind out wins. They have won 4 of their last 7 games outright as an underdog, which is not something you casually stumble into. On top of that, they are 27-19 against the spread on the season, which quietly speaks to how often they show up relative to market expectations. 19 of their 31 wins have come on the road, too, which matters here because it shows they are comfortable playing in tough buildings when everyone in the arena wants them to lose. So while you can understand why Memphis is getting a bit of respect at home, the Nuggets are the team in better current form, and there is the possibility of Jamal Murray returning to bump their ceiling even more. Taken together, that tilt in performance and potential upside points you toward the underdog in this spot. As our first pick for this matchup, the Denver Nuggets to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Denver Nuggets are averaging 121.4 points on 49.9% shooting from the field, which is a level of efficiency that keeps the scoreboard moving almost by habit. They are allowing 117 points on 47.2% shooting, so as strong as their offense has been, their defense does give plenty back, which often keeps games open and flowing rather than grinding. From the perimeter, Denver is hitting 39.8% of their three-point attempts, an elite mark that stretches any defense and makes it harder to load up inside. At the free throw line, they are sitting at 81.5%, which helps them convert trips to the stripe into reliable points instead of wasted chances. On the other side of the ball, they are allowing 35.3% shooting from deep and grabbing 42.2 rebounds per game, which suggests they can be scored on but are not getting completely bullied on the glass. The Memphis Grizzlies, despite their issues, are still putting up 115.9 points per game on 45.7% shooting. They are giving up 116.6 points on 46.4% shooting, so they are almost trading buckets on a nightly basis, with their defense only slightly better on paper than Denver's. From three-point range, Memphis is knocking down 35% of their attempts and hitting 80% of their free throws. They are allowing opponents to shoot 36.3% from beyond the arc and are pulling in 46.2 rebounds per game, which gives them a rebounding edge and adds more possessions to the overall mix. When you put all of that together, you are looking at two teams that both score well into the hundreds on average and allow more than 116 points per night on their own defensive end. Denver's offense runs hot, Memphis' defense bends often, and the Grizzlies themselves still bring enough scoring to hold up their side of the bargain even with the injury issues. The combination of strong efficiency numbers, high three-point percentages, and defenses that are more forgiving than stingy sets up a game state where long empty stretches are less likely and quick scoring bursts are more common. Even with the early uncertainty from the injury report, there is plenty of reason to expect a matchup where each side finds ways to get comfortable offensively and keep the scoreboard active from quarter to quarter. That kind of statistical and stylistic mix points toward a total that can be pushed higher rather than suppressed over 4 quarters. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Golden State Warriors versus Minnesota Timberwolves. This one in Minneapolis has the feel of two teams walking into the same building carrying very different emotional luggage. One side is still trying to figure out what it looks like without Jimmy Butler after that confirmed season-ending right ACL tear, and that kind of loss is not just a line on an injury report. It changes how a locker room talks, how a coach draws up his first play, how confident everyone feels when things get tight late. The other side, Minnesota, is more like a group that knows exactly who it is right now, comfortable on its home floor and comfortable in its own skin. Golden State still orbits around Stephen Curry, but even that familiar sun has a question mark next to it tonight, with him officially listed as questionable because of right knee soreness. On top of that, Seth Curry is out with sciatic nerve irritation, Jonathan Kuminga is out with left knee soreness, and veterans Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton are also carrying those questionable tags with lower body issues. That is not just a lot of names, it is a lot of roles, spacing, and toughness pulled out of or shaken within the rotation, which helps explain why this group has struggled to a road mark of 8-14 and sits at 25-21 overall. Honestly, when you are shuffling who plays and who cannot play that much, the team identity starts to feel like wet cement instead of cured concrete. Minnesota, on the other hand, comes in with a cleaner sheet. Their main rotation pieces, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, and Naz Reid, are not showing up on that current injury list, which means the core that actually drives possessions is ready to go. They have built a strong home mark of 15-7 and an overall record of 27-18, and that does not happen by accident over this many games. Only depth guys like Enrique Freeman, Terrence Shannon Jr., and Rocco Zikarsky are ruled out, and while every body matters over a season, it is different when the absences are not the players who touch the ball every second trip down. Here is the thing that makes this matchup feel a bit lopsided underneath the surface. Minnesota sits in the top 5 in offensive efficiency and effective field goal percentage, which is a fancy way of saying they score well and they do it without needing miracle shots all night. They also grade in the top 4 in defensive rating, giving them the 3rd best net rating in the league. So when people call them balanced, it is not a vibe, it is supported by the numbers. Golden State still brings a punchy offense, sitting 10th in offensive rating with strong shooting, but the defensive side has slipped behind, and their overall net rating lags behind Minnesota's. If you picture a long game of tug-of-war across 48 minutes, one team simply has a thicker rope and better footing right now. Now fold in the market piece. Odds makers have Minnesota sitting as a home favorite in that 6.5 to 7 point window, with an example price of around -6.5 on the spread and a money line in the -232 range. That is not a token nod to home court. It reflects a belief that Minnesota is meaningfully better in this specific spot, with their size, rim protection, and balanced scoring likely to lean on a Warriors team that is thinner and more patched together, especially if Curry's questionable knee nudges his minutes or his aggression down even a little. You can always imagine a hot shooting night or some wild third quarter that flips everything. It is the NBA after all. But when you strip it back to confirmed rosters, current health, and this season's efficiency profile, the more convincing story is the one where the home team holds serve and stretches some daylight against the spread. As our first pick for this matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The total number has been set high, sitting in the mid-230s, with several books hanging a number around 234.5, which is basically the market saying, we expect fireworks. On the surface, that tracks. Golden State is averaging 116.8 points per game, Minnesota is at 120.0, and they are allowing 114.2 and 115.1 respectively. You stack those numbers together and your brain naturally pictures a track meet where every other possession ends with a made three and the scores table barely has time to catch its breath. But that is the simple version, and basketball is rarely that simple. Pace matters, and here it quietly leans in a different direction. Golden State is sitting at about 99.8 possessions, and Minnesota is just over 100, which puts both teams right around league average in tempo instead of racing up and down like they did in their old highlight packages. Let me explain. When pace is average, you need elite scoring efficiency or a lot of transition chaos to blow past a mid-230s total, and while both teams can score, the structure of this matchup makes that kind of constant chaos less likely. Minnesota's defense is a big part of that story. They are 4th in defensive rating, which means across the whole season they have consistently turned games into more of a grind than a track meet, using length and rim protection to make even talented offenses work late into the shot clock. It is one thing to put up numbers against a loose defense in a regular season game that feels like pickup. It is another to do it against a group that meets you with size on the perimeter and a shot blocker behind every drive. Then there is the current version of the Warriors' offense. On paper, they still have shooting. In reality for this game, the list of absences and question marks is long. Jimmy Butler III is done for the season, Seth Curry is out, Jonathan Kuminga is out, and both Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton are questionable, all while Stephen Curry is dealing with that right knee soreness. Even if Curry plays, you are asking a 37-year-old star with a documented knee issue to shoulder a heavy creative load during a tough travel stretch, and he has to do that against a long, physical defense that is built to close airspace on shooters. That scenario can still produce highlights, sure, but it also often produces slower possessions, more probing dribbles, and more half-court sets where the clock bleeds down before a shot. We already saw one meeting between these teams turn into a 127-120 kind of shootout, and that game probably sits in a lot of people's heads when they glance at the total. The catch is that night came with a healthier Warriors group in a very different emotional setting, one where Golden State was not adjusting to a fresh season-ending injury to a second star and a pile of active injury designations around the roster. Expecting this game to copy-paste that exact script is less about what we know right now and more about nostalgia for how these names used to play together. So when you bring all of it together, you get an interesting contradiction that makes sense once you sit with it. Yes, both teams can score, and yes, there will be stretches where it feels like nobody can miss. At the same time, the actual ingredients for a true barn burner, a fast pace, fully healthy shot creators everywhere, and light resistance at the rim are not really all present here. With both teams around average tempo, Minnesota's defense ranking near the top of the league, and Golden State likely leaning on a shorter, banged-up rotation, the more reasonable expectation is still a game with offense, just not one that comfortably clears a lofty mid-230s number. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. New Orleans Pelicans versus San Antonio Spurs. We are looking at a classic spot where the numbers, the context, and a little bit of human nature all tug in the same direction, even if that spread looks a bit scary at first glance. Right now, San Antonio is laying a double-digit line at home, sitting as roughly a 12.5-point favorite with New Orleans catching a big number on the road and a total posted in the high 230s. That price tag is not subtle. It says the market fully buys this Spurs group as a serious Western Conference force and has very little faith in a Pelicans squad that has dug itself into a deep hole in the standings. When you zoom out, the story fits. San Antonio has built a 31-14 record on something more sustainable than one hot month or one star going supernova. They have built it on habits. Their offensive profile sits near the top of the league, and their defensive rating is now around 112 points per 100 possessions, which is a big step forward from where they were not that long ago. That combination, good scoring and honest defense, is the boring grown-up way of winning, and honestly that is exactly the type of team you want as a big favorite, a group that does not need wild comebacks to get the job done. On the floor, the way they win actually matters for the spread. Victor Wembanyama gives them a built-in safety net at the rim, which lets the perimeter players be aggressive without constantly worrying about getting beat, and that kind of structure tends to squeeze sloppy offenses like a vice. De'Aaron Fox pushes the pace selectively, not recklessly, and those controlled bursts after live ball turnovers are where double-digit spreads quietly grow from 10 to 16 before you even finish your drink. Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper add more ball handling and size on the perimeter. Harrison Barnes brings veteran calm. And that mix gives the coaching staff the flexibility to stay big, stay switchable, and keep pressure on all game without emptying the tank early. Now contrast that with New Orleans, who are 11-36 and whose season has felt like a long stretch of potholes with the occasional smooth patch. They finally got a feel-good moment with that comeback win in Memphis, Saddiq Bey dropping a season-high 36 points, Trey Murphy III scorching the nets, and Zion Williamson bullying his way to points and boards. It was loud, it was fun, and if you watch the highlights you almost forget that results snapped a run where they had lost 14 of 16 and 6 in a row to that same Grizzlies franchise. That is the thing with struggling teams. The ceiling pops up every so often, but the floor keeps greeting you most nights. Schedule and fatigue quietly tilt things too, and bettors often talk themselves out of it even though it is one of the more repeatable edges. New Orleans just played Detroit at home, then Memphis on the road, and now face San Antonio on the road again, all packed into a tight 5-day window. Meanwhile, the Spurs are back home after taking care of business in Utah, a 126-109 win where Fox and Wembanyama controlled the fourth quarter and the team generally looked composed rather than gassed. They split that 2-game road swing, then get to reset in their own beds before this one, which might sound like a small thing, but over 82 games those small things show up in legs and in focus. The injury situation leans towards stability for the favorite as well. New Orleans still does not have DeJounte Murray available as he continues to work back from an Achilles issue, and Jose Alvarado is dealing with that left oblique problem that has hovered over their guard rotation and their on-ball pressure. San Antonio, by contrast, has its primary creators and star power available, with the current notes around Luke Kornet being more about a possible absence at backup center than the core identity of the team. When the top end of one roster is intact and the other is patching around the edges, the favorite has a much easier time playing to its strengths for 4 quarters. And if you think about how these games actually feel, not just what the spreadsheet says, a disciplined favorite at home tends to keep nudging the margin wider. The Spurs are on a strong home run, winning repeatedly in this building, and their style makes it tough for a fragile road offense to hang around if the early shots do not fall. The Pelicans, who give up over 120 points per game to opponents and carry a defensive rating north of 120, have not consistently shown the kind of stop-after-stop resilience you need to shrink a lad once it hits that 10 to 12 range. You get empty possessions, rushed threes, forced drives, and suddenly that big number the oddsmakers hung does not look quite as inflated as it did on the board. As our first pick for this matchup, the San Antonio Spurs to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The books are hanging a total number in the high 230s, roughly 237.5 to 239.5 points, which tells you that the expectation is fireworks from both teams, not a grindy rock fight. That kind of total sits in a very specific neighborhood where you do not just need offense, you need sustained offense, plus game flow that keeps both coaches leaning into scoring lineups for most of the night. On paper, both teams can absolutely put the ball in the basket. San Antonio scores at a top-tier clip, and New Orleans averages roughly 115 points per game, with Zion, Murphy, Bey, and Jordan Poole giving them plenty of ways to get to 20 on any given night. So if you only glance at season points per game, a total close to 240 looks almost logical, but totals that high rarely cash on vibes alone. You need the rhythm of the game to cooperate, and that is where the doubts start to creep in. Here is the thing, San Antonio's defense is not window dressing anymore. Their defensive rating sits in that 112 range, which has them among the more effective groups in the league, and Fox Sports has them allowing around 109 to 110 points per 100 possessions, which is firmly in the good defense bucket. They are happy to play at a measured pace, just under 100 possessions per game, stay organized, and let their length bother jump shooters and drivers without needing to gamble all the time. When a team like that gets a lead, the game often starts to look more like a long walk than a sprint, and those extra 4 or 5 seconds burned on each possession quietly pull the scoreline away from numbers like 239. New Orleans, on the other hand, is almost the mirror. Their offense can explode, as Memphis just found out, but their defense has been a problem for months. They are giving up over 122 points per game, sitting near the bottom of the league in opponent scoring, and their defensive rating over 120 points per 100 possessions puts them firmly in that bottom tier statistically. That might sound like an argument for a huge total. More points allowed means more points on the board, right? But often what it actually means is volatility, big runs on both sides, and then long stretches where a tired team simply runs out of gas and starts throwing up quick misses. You can see hints of that volatility in their recent results. They just played that 133 to 127 shootout in Memphis, where they needed a monster fourth quarter to climb out of a double-digit hole, but they have also had games where the offense stalls and their opponent walks away with a comfortable win in a much lower scoring environment. Third game in 5 days, second straight on the road, and now facing a defense that is built around length, rim protection, and contesting threes. That is not exactly the soft landing spot that usually produces 4 quarters of free-flowing offense from the trailing team. When legs get heavy, it shows up in jump shots and late closeouts, but it also shows up in decision-making, in those sloppy turnovers that kill possessions before they even get going. There is also the late-game script to think about. Totals around this number almost need competitive basketball deep into the fourth quarter, with both coaches playing starters normal minutes, still using timeouts, still drawing up plays out of breaks. If the scoreboard starts to stretch in either direction, you often see a different pattern: fewer intentional fouls, longer possessions, more bench guys getting extended run while the stars sit and watch from the sideline. Those bench-heavy minutes can still bring scoring, of course, but they tend to be choppier, less efficient, and more about running clock than chasing style points. It only takes one slightly slower quarter to pull a total from the 240s down into the low 230s. So even though there is more than enough talent on the floor to create a fireworks show, the combination of a strong home defense, a worn-down road offense, and a game script that can easily tilt toward control instead of chaos makes that high total feel more like a ceiling than a baseline. And when a number sits that high, the path where things get just a bit slower, just a bit sloppier, or just a bit more one-sided is often the one that actually plays out. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.